Alright, welcome to Nathan's Scientific Stuff. Today we have a bit of a different video than usual. This is going to be a debunking video on ASAP's science video, Can Math Prove the Existence of God? Now, this is a video that's been debunked a couple of times already, but I figured I would go through it and see what I have to say about it. So, yeah, I guess we'll just let this play until he says something stupid, and then I'll talk about that. Also, just a quick little disclaimer: I'm not exactly against religion and all that stuff. Like, if you guys have actual evidence, I will listen. But what I am against is people like this making all this stuff up and posing as real science channels when really this is just a sad excuse for a science video.
The existence of God has been fiercely debated for centuries, but regardless of what you think or feel is true, can we use math, the universal, unbiased language, to come to a conclusion?
Alright, well, let's see.
The most famous argument in favor of a God-made world using logic and reasoning is the argument by design. Simply put, given how complex and amazing everything around us is, can we really believe that dumb luck put it together?
Well, actually, dumb luck seems a lot more plausible if you consider how old the universe actually is. And another thing, if you're trying to say that because humans are so complex and everything's so complex that we must have been intelligently designed, I would beg to differ on that, because a lot of things in nature are actually pretty poorly designed. So either evolution makes a lot more sense, or your God is not that intelligent.
Even from a scientist's perspective, life is amazing, incredibly rare, and took a monumental amount of steps, chance happenings, and time to come about. So a religious person may argue, doesn't it seem much more plausible that there was some driving force behind it all? This type of argument is called reductio ad absurdum, which simply means it attempts to disprove a statement by showing it inevitably leads to absurd or impractical conclusions.
So wait, science is what leads to absurd and impractical conclusions?
In this case, it suggests that 1. If there's no God, humans developing is very unlikely.
At any particular point in the universe, yes it is, because your God or gods did a very poor job of making sure that the universe is habitable to life.
2. Humans did develop, therefore 3. It is unlikely that there's no God.
What kind of evidence do you have for that? We're one planet, we're one data point. You're only going off of one data point. That's not going to tell you very much, if anything.
But let's take this logic one step further.
Oh God.
And imagine the universe before anything has been created.
Alright, well here comes the box, I guess.
If no God is true, then most would agree that human existence takes a lot of specific factors to come about.
Yes it does, but we have a lot of time in the universe and also a lot of space, so a lot of chances for that to happen.
So let's make up a tiny probability and say that there's a 1 in 4 billion chance of humanity coming into existence in a world with no God.
Where in the hell did you get that number from? In fact, how do you even determine the probability on something like that?
And if God is real, even though we don't know that God would make humans, certainly he could.
Alright, assuming humans are real, we don't know that they would invent religion, but certainly they could. So we'll put that probability at 1 in arbitrary number.
So let's give it a higher probability of 1 in 4 million.
Also, why are you making your arbitrary numbers so small? You think we're special or something? But also, this brings up another really good point. If you're claiming that God's real, okay, whatever, but you're saying that the probability that he created humans could be 1 in 400,000 or whatever, but obviously we exist, so does that mean that the probability that there is a God is actually only 1 in whatever arbitrary number you just came up with?
Of course, if we examine the evidence, we know we exist, so we can get rid of the other row. And as many who have used the argument by design point out, a human-made world with God seems much more likely rationally and statistically.
If by rationally and statistically you mean making up your numbers out of thin air and all that, then yes, I guess it does.
And while this is true in some ways, it forgets an important point, that we have assumed there are only two major theories. But we know this isn't true. Many societies have believed in multiple gods, and given that there are some aspects of this life that aren't nearly as beautifully complex or seemingly intentional, perhaps a variety of squabbling gods created the world.
Or perhaps things are imperfect because we weren't intelligently designed, and we actually came into being after billions of years of natural processes.
Mathematician Jordan Ellenberg uses the probability of 1 in 400,000 that a universe with multiple gods would create humans, but it's important to remember that the exact numbers don't actually matter. What does matter is that we can agree rationally that a universe with more gods has a higher chance of creating humans than one with a single god or none at all.
But like I said, how can you even determine the probability on those kind of things? We're only one data point. And you're talking about something that there's really no way to prove scientifically, so...
It's also important to remember that we're not comparing the probability of gods or no gods existing.
We aren't, because I'm pretty sure that's what this video was about, but okay.
We're asking ourselves, if the God option is true, what is the likelihood of him making humans? And then we're asking separately, if the multiple gods option is true, what is the likelihood that they would make humans?
Which is impossible to figure out because by definition there's no way to test that. God is a supernatural being, and scientifically we cannot prove if supernatural things are true or not.
Now, let's take this even further to theories of us simply living in a simulation like that of The Sims, which...
Alright, I think we all see where this is going, but that brings up more questions. If we are living inside a simulation, then who created the people that created the simulation? Was it a god? Was it multiple gods? Where did they come from?
Individuals like Elon Musk and Oxford philosopher Nick Bostrom believe. As technology advances, it's almost a certainty that future humans will make extremely realistic human simulations based on the world that we live in, to study these humans like we study mice. Scientists already use simulations to understand nature and human behavior, but in the future it's possible that the human test subjects will be conscious and think they're real. So we can give this scenario a fairly high probability. Again, the exact number doesn't matter, just that we can agree it's very likely that...
Alright, really though. Given that an advanced society wouldn't necessarily create a simulation, wouldn't it be more likely that we're the ones that created the simulation rather than the ones living in it?
Advanced humans would create these kinds of simulations compared to the probability of a god or gods randomly deciding to make humans when they don't need to or could make millions of other animals or other aspects of the universe. After all, humanity is obsessed with humans.
And religion.
So, as you can see, while math can in fact show that the existence of life is evidence that God exists...
Oh come on, there was no actual math in this video. Just arbitrary numbers you just made up based on something we can't even prove.
Compared to no God, the same math shows more compelling evidence that we're a simulation by much smarter people.
These guys maybe.
We wanted to recommend the book How Not to Be Wrong, The Power of Mathematical Thinking by Jordan Ellenberg, which was the main source for this episode.
If that book was anything like this episode, I would not trust a word that it says.
And subscribe for more weekly science videos.
Or don't, because that was a very sad excuse for a science video. And it's not the only one either. This is a channel that I've been wanting to debunk some stuff for a long time. It's not just this video. They have many videos on there claiming to be scientific, but really are filled with false research, false evidence, cherry-picked evidence, or other just made-up stuff like this. So, yeah. Anyway, that was ASAP Science's video. Yeah, thanks for watching all that stuff. Let me know if you guys like this, because this is kind of fun making, and it'd be kind of fun to do more of these if you want.
What does matter is that we can agree rationally, regardless of what you think or feel is true. If there's no God,